Okay, let's continue with the bookshelf tour. Let's do another kind of embarrassing part of aspect of my bookshelf. Probably more people's bookshelves than that are bookworms than others. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure there's some people who only have books on their bookshelves that they've read. I happen to have swaths, even after I cleared out tons and tons of books that I haven't gotten around to and have had for a long, long time. Um, let's start off with Robert Sheckley, who is one of these kind of golden age science fiction authors who was whose whose meter was kind of short fiction or what would be considered kind of novellas nowadays, like the Status Civilization. And I mean, I these are books that I really enjoyed. It's weird; it's got kind of a Jesus dude down here at the bottom, but it's very 50s science fiction. He's been transported to a pleasant planet. Barrett had been tried, convicted, and brainwashed on Earth, an Earth frozen by fear of the radical, the new. For his crime, Barrett had been sent to Omega, a prison planet walled by a ring of guard ships that permitted no escape. Omega was a world of horror, living and dying by the law of tooth and claw. But even should Barrett survive Omega, a still greater ordeal awaited him, his escape back to Earth and the subtle and more deadly terrors of the Status Civilization. Bum, bum, bum. And yes, and Mind Swap, which is one of these awesome things where you're swapping bodies. At 31, Marvin Flynn was practically an adult. It was merely the vestiges of adolescent foolishness that sent him to a body brokerage firm of Otis, Blanders, and Clent. Or was it extraterrestrial fever? Whatever it was, Martin knew that he must see the burrows of Mars, the talking ocean, and the disappearing desert, and above all, mud heaven. What he didn't know was that even more than one person had claims on the body of Z. Kragrash, and that before he was finished he would see more strange sights, even stranger eyes than he had ever imagined, that in his desperate struggle for continued corporeal existence he would fall prey to metaphorical deformation, the limitations of the set expansion factor, and at last descend, ascend, extend to the strange and unexplainable reaches of the twisted world for the ultimate mind swap. God, the people who write the backs of these were like talents in themselves. So I fell victim because I actually read enjoyed those two. I went out and found much more Robert Sheckley. Many collections. I'm sure probably somewhere he has a collection like his collected short stories. Maybe sometimes these guys didn't, but I fell victim to. I need to get a kind of collection of, and they all these awesome covers. The Wonderful World of Robert Sheckley. Just look at those covers. I grew up in an age where I could go to a secondhand bookstore and there would be all these just awesome covers of the 60s and 70s, back when they were not really untouched by human hands. Yeah, it's a really good collection of his short stories of all his work. So I've read two of them, and I have a bunch of other ones. God, I wonder if it's again one of those things where my eyesight is going to kill me, and that I have books on my shelves that I collected. Like I'll get to them one day, and then I maybe get to them one day, and I find that the font is too small for me, which maybe means I just need to, stump up and actually get some glasses. Then there's Melissa Scott. Somebody I've heard interesting stuff about, The Kindly Ones. Also shares the title with a Holocaust novel written by a Frenchman, a Frenchman, which I've read that. That was a huge thumper, highly tasteless and kind of appropriate for the subject matter in a way. Melissa Scott, I think, is more, what is this? Ortesses was a cruel world, cold and inhospitable. This is science fiction. Its first colonies were castaways from a crash landing, clinging to survival through institution of strict socio-political controls. Over the generations, life grew somewhat easier, but the code of honor remained. Misdeeds, errors were paid with for blood. And so, yeah, it's more kind of the social social science fiction, that kind of idea of like, what can we do for things. Here's another one by her. It's Trouble and Her Friends, which I think is sort of a little bit in the cyberpunk realm of stuff, that thing. Lucius Shepard is one of these guys that I think I heard him getting interviewed on the Coode Street podcast, which is Jonathan Strathern, and Gary K. Wolfe, who are big poobahs in the science fiction realm. And Lucius Shepard is one of the kind of the older kind of science fiction fantasy guys, who sadly at that point in his career had kind of suffered the fate of the mid-list author and was having trouble actually getting anything published, even though from everything that they said about him, Gary K. Wolfe and Jonathan, that he's like a really good writer. So I picked up some of his books, and I of course have not read them. Another embarrassment there. We've got next Roderick Random, which if I get to him, yes, probably Sladek is back here. There's a connection here. Tobias Smollett is is it the 17th century or 18th century author? For the sheer narrative pleasure and exuberant inventiveness, we need to read Smollett, master of the picaresque. Of his novels, none better typifies his art than this chronicle of the career of Roderick Random, pursuing love and fortune through every conceivable twist and turn of fate. Before this indelectable something protagonist achieves his final vindication, the reader is offered an unforgettable journey through a lusty, brawling, Hogarthian world in a work that stands at the very embodiment of that age's unflagging energy and boundless appetite for life. The words of John Barth: sailors, soldiers, fine gentlemen, ladies, whores, homosexuals, card sharpers, fortune hunters, tradesmen of all description, clerics, fops, scholars, lunatics, highwaymen crowd a stage that extends from Glasgow to Guinea, from Paris to Paraguay, and among themselves perpetuate battles, debaucheries, swindles, shenanigans, duels, seductions, rescues, pranks, poems, shipwrecks, heroisms, murders, and marriages. They wail and guffaw, curse and sing, make love, and foul their breeches. In short, they live. It's got Afterword by John Barth, which, hey, all for afterwards. John Barth, that's maybe more of an advertisement for his prose style. Though Tobias Smollett, definitely it's picaresque. It's going all over the place, having all sorts of bizarre adventures. It is, good Lord, just the chap. Tobias George Smollett was born in 1721 in Scotland and orphaned shortly thereafter. He attended Dumbarton Grammar School and studied surgery at the Glasgow University. At 18, after a brief apprenticeship to Glasgow medical men, he set out to make his literary fortunes in London. And thus probably his sad life was kicked off. Poor Scotsman down in England. Next, Bram Stoker, Dracula, which I have most definitely read. A lovely, really good kind of epistolary novel, or a novel of a whole bunch of different viewpoints, all swirling around titular Count Dracula. And then there's The Life and Times of Tristram Shandy by Lawrence Stern, which I have to admit I've read part of, but it's one of those books I still feel like I need to take a run up to get myself through, because just I have to embrace the diversions, we're going to go off in tangents. I have to embrace all the tangents that is this book. This is a book that is made of tangents. And with that in mind, I also picked up A Sentimental Journey, which is maybe a shorter work. Maybe I should start off by trying that. You can tell me below. And I will finish off this mostly unread bookshelf tour with Jose Saramago and The History of the Siege of Lisbon, which I think is one of these things of like winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature. I have a feeling I picked this up somewhere around when he came to more world prominence from winning the Nobel Prize. And I've never gotten to it. Maybe I should. A magical tale of love, memory, and the revisions of things past from one of the world's greatest writers. Raimundo Silva An innocuous bachelor has chosen the safe occupation of proofreader at a distinguished publishing house. One day he inexplicably takes it upon himself to alter a key word in a history text. His alteration leads him into an affair of the heart that changes the course of European history. Around a seemingly minor incident, Jose Saramago has constructed one of his most ambitious, sweeping novels to date, a broad, multifaceted tableau involving meditations on histography, the uses and abuses of language, and life under authoritarian rule. The rollicking love story is a delight for readers of Jorge Luis Borges, Salman Rushdie, and Gabriel Garcia Marquez. So, Salman Rushdie I have enjoyed. Sometimes I find him a little bit on the bloated side. Borges, I enjoy. I enjoy. Sometimes you wonder if he gets just tossed in as great writer. And Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who I've probably got one of his books unread around here. I think I probably already showed you that, of the 100 Years of Solitude. 100 Years of Solitude? Yeah, so I should pick it up. Very nice looking book. Probably with, unlike my paperbacks, with an actual readable font. So that is the mostly unread books. We'll get to a little bit more read books next time. It's one of these. I'm really glad I'm doing this on the private channel, because it's sort of embarrassing, all the stuff I haven't read. I guess, you could say that about just the literature in general, but just in this room itself, it's like, is it 40% of the books I haven't read? Which, I will get around to them. I'll also probably bring in hundreds and hundreds of more books. Probably more in the ebook category now than in physical book form. I'll show you my little pile of books I'm going to try and disperse once the COVID-19 is over, and I can get out and drop my books off at Value Village or whoever will take them. All right. More bookshelf tours later.